Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
It's a pleasure to welcome you to this year's Undergraduate Scholars Forum, our 18th annual gathering in celebration of student creativity and intellectual exploration here at Westminster College. This forum is one of the highlights of our academic year. It brings together to recognize the hard work and curiosity that drive our students to go beyond the classroom, to ask meaningful questions, pursue innovative ideas, and contribute to their fields in thoughtful and original ways. Today is about showcasing that spirit. Whether you are presenting, attending sessions, or offering feedback or support, your presence helps to cultivate the collaborative, inquiry-driven community we value so much at Westminster. We are also excited to begin the day with our keynote speaker, John York, a Westminster graduate, and Amelia Hilse, our student presenter. I encourage you to take full advantage of the day. Listen, learn, ask questions, and be inspired by the remarkable work on display. And most importantly, take a moment to acknowledge what an accomplishment this day represents for everyone involved. Thank you for being here, and let's enjoy this celebration of scholarship together. Now it is my pleasure to introduce President Don Lofi, Chief Transformation Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid, and very much appreciate your kind introduction to everybody. Firstly, I'd like to just take a moment here to thank Abby and Kelly for all the effort that the other areas of the institution, whether it's marketing, whether it's publicity, technology, plant, et al. And so much goes on for so many months to make this a very appropriate event. And I just want to thank all of you. A round of applause for all of them, please. And before I begin my own small remarks here, this day I've had the pleasure and honor of being a part of this now. I think it's going on 4 years, and we'll talk about Thad and his family here. But it's been such a pleasure for us to see that everything you do with students. I had the opportunity to go to STEAM Night last week, the student play last night, and it's just remarkable, and it's such a pleasure to see what all of you and your fellow students are so capable of, and the faculty and staff support for them. So I want to thank all of you, too, for everything you do on this campus. Round of applause for all of you. Again, this is a special day each year for our students, along with our faculty and staff. And this day wouldn't be possible without the generosity and kindness of the Stubbs family, whose endowment has made this day of scholarship a reality for over 2 decades. Dr. David Stubbs, who had the chance to meet the first year, was an esteemed alumnus of this college who sadly passed last year. For those who were there last year, it was a very memorable forum and had the chance to meet Thad, his mother, and other members of the family. Dr. Stubbs was a dedicated surgeon and Lifetime Leadership Award honoree from the class of 1968. Dr. Stubbs is also known for his kind and generous heart and utmost loyalty to this college, someone with the desire to support the advancement of academic scholarship and the curiosity for learning. Again, although longer Mr. Stubbs is with it, Dr. Stubbs is with us, the legacy lives on through the Stubbs Family Endowment, which was put into place because of his love of the academic experience at our college, and because of his professors' profound influence on his professional journey, but also his personal journey. Dr. Stubbs launched USF with his son, Thad Stubbs, class of 1999, who I've had the pleasure to get to know over the last couple of years, and again he's with us today, along with Beth Howard McClellan, another outstanding graduate of the Westminster class of 2001. The entire Stubbs family are now a part of this endowment, supporting the awards, which will be shared later this morning, for outstanding academic work by our students. Now please join me in recognizing the Stubbs family for their outstanding generosity and dedication to Westminster College. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mark Bolton to the podium. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce our speaker this morning. I've only been given 2 minutes, so I'm going to read. That's the only way I can stay on track, so bear with me on this one, okay? All right. So there are many great aspects about this job, but none brings a bigger smile to my face than seeing our students go on and do incredible things with their lives after graduation. It's even more gratifying when those students have stayed in touch, becomes friends over the years, and are most deserving of their success. I first met John on a Civil War battlefield dig up the road at Moores Mill in 2014, and over the next 2 years, as he worked on his secondary education and history degrees, he became a star of our program and of the college. Keys to his success was that he seized the opportunities that we have to offer, from leadership roles in Greek and student life, honors societies, academic conferences, USF, and most memorably for me, as one of the first students to venture with me to Vietnam in 2016. Drinking vodka out of a bottle with a dead snake in it in Saigon, or crawling through Viet Cong tunnels which were way too short for his height and way too narrow for my width, creates a bond that you cannot break. And don't worry, Don, the students sign waivers, so we're okay. Okay, all right. So when John got in touch a few years back to discuss getting into a museum studies program, I was smiling during our entire conversation because the more and more he talked, I could find that I realized that he had found his passion. And it was no surprise that he got into one of the best graduate schools in the nation, and after a short period of time, he attained a terrific position at one of the premier public history institutions, Thomas Jefferson's historic home in Monticello. John will fill in the details of his journey and the important work that he is doing, but I could not be more proud of him. I love our slogan, small college, big impact, because our small environment allows us to create these kinds of educational opportunities and experiences, and seeing John's progress is testimony to the impact that we have. So could you please join me today in welcoming our opening speaker, Mr. John York, class of 2016, and my friend.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. While the PowerPoint's coming up, I do just want to say I've been here for the past about 24 hours in Mid-Mo, and it's been a great reunion to hear from so many people who shaped my time here at Westminster College, and to be able to see so many familiar faces that shaped me still to this day. Every lesson that I've learned here is something I carry with me in the back of my pocket when I'm walking around the mountaintop at Monticello, for sure. And I think about that in this lecture hall in particular. This was the first room I ever visited at Westminster College 14 years ago when I took my high school visit. And I remember the then president at that time, Dr. Barney Forsythe, saying it was a great day to be a Blue Jay. And this is one of those great days to be a Blue Jay, for sure. So my thanks to all of the students here. My thank you for the invitation to speak. And a great introduction, Dr. Bolton. You make me sound more interesting than I actually am. 10 years ago, I stood at the beginning of the Undergraduate Scholars Forum across the street of the auditorium, and I was actually the student speaker that year. I was presenting on my senior history thesis, which is called Go West Young Ma'am, and was focused on the lives of pioneer women in my home state of Kansas. Are there any native Kansans out here? Okay. We represent, yeah. It was an interesting journey for me. You know, public speaking was a big deal to becoming a teacher, but obviously you don't speak in front of crowds that big as a young person all that often. But it gave me a chance to kind of summarize some of the really important stories and really get a first taste as to why historical research matters and how that research and sharing of these stories can help to shape our understanding of the world today. Abby Bright, who you can see on the screen behind me, was a particular character I fell in love with. Her diary is incredibly well preserved at the Kansas State Historical Society from her 2-year journey in Kansas in 1871 and 1872. She decides to move out west from Pennsylvania and then Indiana because she wants adventure. And who doesn't dream of that when they're a young person, right, looking for jobs and what their future might hold? She's an unmarried, single woman traveling on her own. And when she writes the letter to her brother Philip, who is homesteading, you can see his lot is in pink on the screen behind me, who is homesteading in Sedgwick County, just outside of what is now Wichita, She decides to write him a letter, says, "I'm coming to join you," and then she leaves before the letter arrives to him. Hopefully he got it before she showed up at his doorstep. She then settles in to rural life and taking advantage of all the opportunities she has. She becomes a teacher, makes friends with the community members, flirts with a young man named Frank, and also decides to homestead herself on 160 acres, which she ends up proving so that she could keep the land herself going forward. And along the way, she writes very detailed and vivid stories throughout her diary about all the encounters she has, all the adventures that she goes on, and even the roughness of the stagecoach ride from when the train station ended in Topeka and she had to make it all the way out west on overland wagon. Her story is kind of a lesson in the adventures of youth, right? And it contrasted with another woman who was a part of that larger research project too, named Miriam Colt. Miriam Colt was middle-aged when she moved to Kansas, and she was a part of a utopia movement looking to create a vegetarian colony outside of what's now Iola. Radical vegetarians back in the day, just so you know, were part of the temperance movement. It was kind of this abstention to make a better society at whole. It wasn't just a dietary choice for them. So these are radical abolitionists traveling through border war Kansas to get to this new colony. They had been promised an Eden, like many other people who would be moving out west, including this octagon-designed city that would have been fully built, but did not exist when they showed up. And instead, her year in Kansas is full of heartbreak and tragedy, infighting amongst the male leaders of the colony, disease, death going through the camp, to the point where they have to give up and they leave because there's no way that they can stay. And that even on the journey home, the pains of their time in Kansas travel with them as she loses her husband and her son on the journey back east. I have to say that this first research experience was really meaningful to me because the first lesson about research that I picked up from this was just how hard it is. It's a great work to do, but it's like all things that we do when we're young people, such as getting an Eagle Scout award or becoming really good at playing a sport throughout high school. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes not giving up. You have to pick things that you love, stories that you find interesting, and you have to be willing to invest in the journey. And the journey is kind of where I get to go from here. See, after I graduated as an education double major, I became a high school teacher for 5 years at Grain Valley High School in Grain Valley, Missouri, suburban Kansas City. And of course, with that history degree, you would have thought I taught U.S. history. They gave me AP psychology. Yeah. Thankfully, Dr. Coates, Dr. Jones were in my corner to give me some great advice. And I will even say, seeing up in the top row of the stands here, I see at least one of my former AP psychology students joining us here this morning. So I guess the journey worked out in the long run. But the second lesson that research taught me during this was just how research is a part of our everyday life, whether we know it or not. Here I was, right, leading a classroom, going through the whirlwind that is being a first-year teacher. Everything's new. You're doing action research all the time because you're changing the lesson plan from every single class period to the next, hoping that it's more effective, you get through to more students the next time you do it. And then also, teaching AP Psychology, the biggest unit of the entire year is research and methods. And so from teaching about sampling using M&M packets to having students teach me how to walk so we could talk about the differences in different types of memory, many great Snapchat videos in Grain Valley lore of me standing on tables, jumping off of them, jumping back on, and then falling over myself. But doing conformity experiments in the hallway, playing card games to talk about different lots in life, we had a lot of great time talking about research. And that included asking teenagers, do you see how cognitive biases show up in your everyday life? You being a teenager shopping in a store, do people maybe treat you differently, et cetera, et cetera. And it dawned on me just how much research is with us everywhere we go. It's at the grocery store. It's in the design of those classrooms that your teachers are doing as well too. And every relationship you make is in some way kind of a case study. And every group that you're watching is in some ways a naturalistic observation. As long as you don't interfere with them, then it becomes you messed with your variables. So thinking about all the ways research showed up in that class, I realized suddenly that it wasn't just history that mattered, but it was following up on everything else. And so you can see behind me, well, the picture on the left is cute. There was a student who was drawing at the end of class, and they drew a portrait of me. I thought it was pretty good, so I took a photo. But you can see the journey then became, what more can I learn about content? What's the latest in research that I can bring back to my classroom? And that takes you on a journey as well, too. It took me all the way out to Oregon State in particular, where you can see me holding that brain as a part of the first APA Psychological Science workshop in 2019. It took me to being an AP Psychology reader for the AP exam in Tampa, Florida for one time, and then virtually when COVID changed everything. And I realized that these skills of research, understanding how it works and what is good research, influences everything else we do in life. COVID hit. You may or may not remember it. I know it was a blur. It seems like it was 20 years ago, and I promise it was just 5. And I started thinking about, where did I want to go next? Teaching was fun. It's not quite as much fun when you're not in the classroom, though. What I was doing for my summer job at that time, though, was living history. My summer job, and sometimes on weekends during the school year, was as a living historian doing blacksmithing, working the gardens and working on a farm, walking horses, and also interpreting a house on a Santa Fe Trail stagecoach line at Mahaffey Stagecoach Stop and Farm in Olathe, Kansas. And suddenly, there was kind of that aha, metanoia moment during COVID. One of my days, I was at the farm, and I had a conversation with Dr. Bolton. We talked over the phone, and we talked over Zoom. And I had a conversation with my 2 bosses, who are still dear friends and incredible mentors. Can you make a living out of working in museums? There's this happy median where it's about research, but it's about public access to knowledge and being able to educate people and communicate that effectively, right? And being able to engage them with all the tools in a teacher's toolbox, but being able to do it in a way that doesn't always feel like you're stuck in a classroom. And of course, research influenced everything we did at that job, from our interpretive training, where we learned that, interpretation is provocation, it's not instruction. There's the power of the framing effect, right? There's the whole emotional intelligence aspect of interpreting and working with the public, where you have to learn to read faces and also read your own face and your bodily reactions so that you can engage with people who sometimes come in hot when they're interacting with you. But then there was also the fun stuff of getting to go to the National Archives office in Kansas City dressed in my period clothes, including my cork boots, to look up court records to see if there was anything about a horse thief trial for a reenactment that we wanted to do at Mahaffey. It was the only time I wore those clothes in public where nobody accused me of being Amish. Makes me wonder who else was going there to do research. So, yeah. And that leads me then to where I've really been going the last 4 to 5 years of my life. So, kind of the third lesson research has taught me is indeed just that. Sometimes you have to let your research guide you. You never know where it's going to take you. That's true of content, that's true of the projects you'll have, it's true of the places you'll go, and it's certainly true of the people you'll meet and collaborate with. And so what you see behind me, and I'll talk about these in just a little bit, are some of the projects that I did during my time at the Cooperstown Graduate Program. Going from being a full-time teacher and a part-time historical interpreter, I certainly had no idea that my master's degree would be in museum studies. I didn't know those existed. I didn't know they had graduate programs in Cooperstown, New York. I thought that's just where the Baseball Hall of Fame was. But on the advice of my museum bosses and with the help of Dr. Bolton and so many of my other mentors, I applied, and I was very grateful to get accepted into the class of 2023 at what we call CGP. Cooperstown Graduate Program is the oldest public history and museum studies program in the country, founded in the early 1950s based around folklore and oral history, but has grown to become a game changer in the entire field of museums. If you go to one of the world-class museums all around this country, regional, local, and even the national ones, you will probably find CGP alumni running curatorial departments, exhibitions, education programs, being the administrators, the development officers like myself, etc. We are people who help to shape the conversation about many topics. And it was a great experience because Cooperstown, not unlike my experiences here at Westminster, was all about being hands-on. Yes, there's time in the classroom. Yes, there's classic research projects and papers to do, but almost everything was based around field experiences. And that's what you'll learn about research the most. It's about the experiences you can take with you that shape you going forward. So some of the great projects I did, up here in the top, you'll see some highlights of what we call the Cooperstown Community Stories, which is our long-running oral history project. And one of the first classes we do is an oral history interview with a local resident from the Cooperstown region to find themes about farming, community, land usage, water rights, how the town has changed as tourism and baseball took over from what it used to be in older days. And you also learn what it is to be a good active listener, how to ask an open-ended question, and how to not speak so you can let people think and give you the right answer back, their answer, kind of a thing. So how do you empower people to be a part of the historical process? How do you democratize history? You'll also see down here, another project for historic preservation was a mapping project of Green Book sites. And a lot of you might know about the Green Book from the movie in 2018, or some other research projects and book that have come out recently about it. But these sites were all around upstate New York. They're all around the country. A lot of people used to travel to these places because it was the only way they could experience one part of the American dream, right, which is freedom on the road and freedom to experience and see this great country. A lot of these sites no longer exist, and a lot of them that do are either private houses or have been so changed fundamentally that what our memories are fading unless we map where they are and find what we can about the stories so people can relive where their parents and their grandparents and sometimes they themselves once traveled so that they could experience this great country. By the way, archives in county courthouses, very dusty. A lot of good information in there though. So you'll also be amazed just how much you can find on Google when you're trying to chase down the cultural landscape. And I also have to say, the very first project we did was the Utica Food Project. This one was a great opportunity to learn about the immigrant experience. And so now instead of having a conversation with people who look like me, who maybe have similar experiences to me, to talk to people whose backgrounds couldn't have been more different from mine growing up in suburban Kansas City. And yet to learn that everybody just wants a taste of home no matter where they are. And that even an old Rust Belt city like Utica can be reborn again if you invest in it. It's also a great time to learn how to collaborate. And then of course I'm going to highlight my kindergarten project because as an education major, how can you not talk about a great education project? I don't know if any of you went to an old school building from the 1930s, but apparently it used to be in the architectural details for New Deal school buildings designs that fireplaces would be included in kindergarten and first grade classrooms. Some of them are real, hopefully not used while children were in there. Some of them are just for the look. And what a great question to ask yourself. What does that tell us about society at the time when we value early childhood education, but we're going to put rocking chairs and fireplaces in them, separate entrances, right? So that the kindergartners don't have to go with all the big kids. A lot of questions you can ask from that you would never expect, right? And how do we value our children as a society? And what does it mean to teach them? And what are we trying to learn? So all of this museum work is to say that history is everywhere, and the journey can take you places you certainly don't expect. I think the number one thing that you learn sometimes just by walking on a city sidewalk or walking through a museum gallery is that power of naturalistic observation, right? Where do people take their selfies? What do they value while they're there? What do you hear people talking about? What's caught their curiosity? How much time did they spend looking at a certain panel in a certain exhibition hall? And where do they move on? See, we cannot cherry pick the information that people want to hear, nor can we cherry pick the information that we communicate to other people. The journey has to guide you. And there's opportunity out there for all sorts of research projects. You know, in Missouri alone, you have museums about German immigrants, you have museums about jazz and about blues. There even famously used to be one off I-70 about Elvis still being alive. You never know where information is going to guide you. You never know what you're going to learn by traveling to a new place. You never know what people are going to help you to do. Because the last part about the CGP experience that I really want to point out is that research is not a solitary endeavor. It's not just you laboring away in a library, dark room in a corner all by yourself. It's a teamwork activity. There are other experts who are researching what you want to research that you can collaborate with. There are teammates who want to join you for the journey from step one to the very end of it. You're never going to be alone. And some of the best relationships you'll make in your life are based around the research that you do, whether it's with the narrators of your oral histories, or whether it's with your classmates at CGP, doing such silly things as making documentaries. Certainly never thought I'd have the experience of doing that. Eating pierogies and talking to church ladies about how the weekly pierogi cafe came to their church community. The virtual hamster ball, which my professor is in that ball, Dr. Eric Stingler, so that you can learn about the possibility of digital technology in museums, right? And how you can give different experiences to people when they come to see you. And then also look like a gerbil, which is kind of fun. And certainly my museum security class, you never think that researching security issues in a museum is a research topic you can do. But it's been 35 years since those artworks were stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. It's quite the case study for us to get to research to get to talk to the head of security there and then research our own theories as to what happened. I'll let you know, I'm fairly certain I think it was an inside job. And that gets me to my time at Monticello. For those of you that don't know, Monticello is located just outside Charlottesville, Virginia. And yes, one of the common questions I get, people ask, where are you from? Kansas City. Oh, do you know Lewis and Clark? Why, yes, I do. I come from the best part of the Louisiana Purchase. Monticello is Thomas Jefferson's universe. It's kind of the thing that's always in his mind, no matter where he is throughout his very long and productive life. It is both a landscape, which you can kind of see highlighted here in the middle. This is our 1,000-foot vegetable garden carved into a notch on the side of the mountain. But the house itself, the whole of Monticello, is part of the architectural design. That mountain got flattened by enslaved laborers to help build the house that was to come on top of it. There were quarter farms located throughout the 5,000 acres. You can even see the strip of land heading up to Monte Alto, the high mountain across the street from Monticello. This was a place where people lived and labored, not just Thomas Jefferson, and hands shaped this whole environment. And there are things to learn from that. What plants grew here, what crops grew here, and why. You can see the entry hall, which as a kid from Missouri, and I have to admit, my first day at Monticello was my first day at work. I had never been to Monticello as a tourist before my first day at work there. So getting to see the very first room on the tour, which is the entry hall, right, which was set up as Mr. Jefferson's personal museum gallery to try to kind of awe and inspire people. But for me, I walk in, and this is the room where Lewis and Clark, all those things they shipped in 1805, showed up. And so suddenly it was full circle, right? The kid from the Louisiana Purchase was suddenly in the home where the dream of the Louisiana Purchase had been percolating for decades. It's pretty amazing stuff. And it does catch my eye, and it makes me ooh and ah every time I get the pleasure to be in there. And then, of course, you can see over here, just a nice view. It's tulip season, by the way. I took this photo myself on Wednesday last week. But we are the Nickel, right? We're a UNESCO World Heritage Site for the architecture of Monticello. You know, this is a place where so many of the things that shape American society take place. And research is a big part of the work we do there, because if there's another lesson that research has taught me, and that I really feel every day in my work in Monticello, is that scholarship drives your mission. You should not ever make your decisions lightly without using research. So in my role, I'm a development officer working on the Major Gifts team. You'll find a lot of ways that the research in Monticello and the great and complicated stories that we tell show up. I went through the same EVP training and historical background and that they all did, so I could give better tours to the donors and special groups that I get to lead around the mountaintop. We do lots of interviews, trying to figure out the institutional history and people's relationship with Monticello from when they were kids growing up, when things were very different in the 50s and 60s to how Monticello is for people like me who show up in 2023. Certainly, my thesis writing skills come in handy when I'm writing grants. You find me digging deep for data, diving into archives, asking, collaborating with my colleagues and asking for their help in getting good numbers so I can then synthesize, right? A great research term, synthesis, right? Can synthesize into, digestible bites, information that communicates the powerful work we do here and why this project matters so that funders might be impacted by it. And you'll also find that research influences everything we do as a museum. It's your demographic data of your visitation. It's trying to keep track of the sales in the store. What sells? What doesn't sell? How many people are buying these tickets for this tour, right? It's about keeping track of your gardens and your grounds. How does the weather affect what we're able to do here, right? How does the weather affect visitation, What does our audience want us to do with Monticello? Research is everywhere. It's not just in the history, but of course the history is a big part of it too. And I would love to highlight just a little bit of the work that my colleagues do, that it's my job as a development officer to empower, to help find support for, so that they can keep doing the amazing, incredible things they do all the time. Whether it's getting access to conferences so that they can network and talk to other educators across the country so that our field trip programs are better well known, and that our guides and our professional EVP staff have access to the latest educational tools and technology. Whether it's our academic wing which is ICJS. You see the campus up there, which brings world-renowned scholars every year to Monticello so that they can deepen research about the Jefferson life and legacy and the times in which this country was founded. But also home to such meaningful work is the Getting Word African American History Oral History Project that interviews descendants of the enslaved community at Monticello so we can fill in the gaps of what we know about this place, the main home, the landscape, and everything in between. And also home to our Jefferson Library, which, fun fact, is a public library. When you come visit, please get a library card and check out some books so you can learn and read from people who have been writing about Jefferson's times for generations and see the evolution and how we view them and what we know, and how we know what we know. So you also see it's still an active archaeology site. 5,000 acres is what Monticello was at Jefferson's peak. Of that, we have over 2,000 of those acres under management of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation, my employer, and so much of it is yet to be uncovered, and the stories of the people who lived all across this plantation. For they moved. They never stayed in one place all the time. It's not just the main house, right? There's so many stories to learn. And if you're to visit right now, you can interact with my incredible archaeology colleagues because they're working on a mitigation project at the entryway to the house as we get ready to build new accessible pathways. So, and it's also included in our digital archives too. Constantly updated is the Thomas Jefferson Encyclopedia. That way, spurious quotes, we can battle against that, right? Everybody wants to quote somebody like Jefferson. You got to do it correctly, right? But it makes us so we have opportunity to make publicly available the retirement papers, different quotes and letters from the Jefferson family as well too, and that people have an opportunity to take their visit from the museum home with them no matter where they are, and that they can engage with the work that we're doing and learn more about the founding of America no matter where they are, because we're public historians. Access matters to us. And the whole idea of scholarship driving your work is that good research allows people to see themselves no matter where they are, no matter who they are. Good research allows us to humanize the past so people can feel things and they can connect. Good research builds trust. It can build repair. The people who might not see themselves as belonging at a place like this are as long often ignored. And good research empowers all of us to be confident when we go into the field and talk about the great things we do. Research matters. It should drive the mission of your work. And so as I move to conclude here, I just want to reflect kind of on those 4 life lessons and also bring up a 5th lesson. I have to say, everybody wants to understand their place in the world. If there's one thing that we as public historians really think about, it's how everybody wants to figure out their place in the timeline and how did we get here and where can I go from here, right, with the life story that I get to lead. And I think about my Westminster experiences. How many kids graduate from undergrad get to say they did an archaeology day of a Civil War battlefield where one of the guys looks like Abraham Lincoln, digging up the battlefield with us? How many people get to go to Vietnam with Vietnam War veterans and hear their stories as we travel around from place to place, that they were stationed here, that they have memories of things that happened here? How many people get to go to conferences, do EDU practicums in the field, get to be a leadership in their fraternity and travel across the country to learn how different chapters work and what it is to be a leader amongst people with different mindsets? How many people get to make relationships with professors and students where you're so comfortable with them that you go back and forth, yapping, as the kids say, because you want to find out the truth of a great question you both share in common? Westminster really gave me a lot of the skills to help understand my place in the world, and it gave me a voice so I could do that too. And that has traveled with me throughout the last decade of my life as I think about the ways that I do research and that research shapes my work today. And I do want to get this point across as well too. For many of you in this room, you will not become academics. You might not write books. You'll probably, you'll get great jobs doing so many things in the nonprofit and the for-profit world. But research will travel with you too. To help you understand your place in the world, think about the ways research will show up, as you need to know the institutional history of the company you work for, and how change is best when it comes slow, as opposed to trying to steer the ship at 180 immediately. You'll do research when you're looking for a home loan or a car loan, and are you getting the best tools, the best offers out there on the table? You'll do research when you're comparing news sources to make sure that you're not getting misinformation out in the public sphere. but that way you understand that you are well educated and getting a nuanced opinion of the world outside. And you'll certainly be doing research because all of you in this room are global citizens. And it's important for you to understand that history is made every day. Just because it happens all the time doesn't mean it's not important. If there's a lesson that Abby Bright and Miriam Colt taught me that I understand now better a decade on from that speech 10 years ago, it's that their lives may have been ordinary in so many ways, but it's the fact that they lived that matters, and the fact that they leave pieces of their story behind for us to understand what they did and why they did it, and how it shapes the world we live in that matters. You all in this room are part of history yourselves. You don't have to become the quote-unquote great men or great women of history to make history, to matter in history. Someday, I might make a museum exhibit that's all about you in here. And so research can be very scary and very overwhelming, but as I think about the ways we try to understand our place in the world too, I want to leave you with just a couple thoughts, but one quick story. And it's related to this next photo here. Went to see my grandmother on Monday. It's nice to be able to see her when I'm in town. To understand my place in the world, she has always known I'm a history person. She brought out these 2 big books, put them on the kitchen table when I was talking to her on Monday, and she said, "John, do you want these?" And I said, "What are these? I think I know what they are, but I don't know what they are." And she said, "These are the genealogy books that I've been working on." She hasn't worked on them for the past few years. Her health hasn't been great. And we lost my grandfather last year, and that was a big part of slowing down the work. But as soon as she said that, the flood of memories hit me that for about 10 years of my life, this was her project. Researching her family, researching my family, the Yorks, and trying to put together as much of an archive as possible, because history that is shared is history that is saved. And in order for me to understand my place in the world, it was meaningful for me and my sister and my brother and also my dad to be able to see the background of our life story as York members. And now I have these incredible books in my collection of everything my grandpa did, my dearly departed grandpa who I just lost as a kid, all the rambunctiousness he was as a student. And I realized that that matters because now it means that he lived, and he'll always live as long as we keep sharing those stories, which is the power of historical research. And so it's a great honor to be able to speak with you here today, and I just want to make sure that as you move forward in your life, don't forget to be silly sometimes. Research doesn't have to be all serious. Here I am with Thomas Jefferson, as portrayed by Bill Barker, staring at the sun during the eclipse last year on the West Lawn of Monticello. But I want you to make sure that you stay curious, keep digging at research, don't give up on it. And just remember, it doesn't have to become a book, it doesn't have to become a poster, right? It doesn't have to become a documentary that you make, but every research you do is knowledge that you gain, and that knowledge matters. Keep it alive, keep sharing it. How the word is passed is the most important thing that we have in society. And as the world gets bigger for you all, the more you know will help you see the world in a better light. You'll understand that everything doesn't come from nothing. It always comes from something else, and that it's okay. It's complex, and in many directions. But it's that digging that allows us to understand that a whole lot better. And so, as I leave you here today, I just want to thank you all for your time. Remember to keep going, and I hope to see you on the mountaintop sometime soon. So thank you very much.
We do have time for any questions from the audience. We've got 2 minutes for that, so anything anyone wants to ask about John? Don't be shy. Yeah, Liz.
Hi, I have a question. Do you have any advice for future researchers and historians that are about to embark into the world?
So much advice. Yeah, so much advice. It's I would be, it would be wrong of me not to mention that, we do live in a time and era where people want to cherry pick information. And I think that's why the lesson of you have to let the journey guide you, right? So if you're going to go into research, it's not just about picking things you're passionate about, but it's staying open-minded, staying fair to yourself, right? Kind of give your brain the breaks, that work-life balance. But don't be afraid to see things through. The answers might not fit the hypothesis, right? And you have to be willing to accept that and move on to the next part of your research project. And I certainly think it's also important for you to pick things that fascinate you, right? Everything is interesting, everything is important, but it has to be something you feel matters, that's relevant to you, that you can find that importance in, right? And of course, give yourself breaks. Never, ever jump into research thinking that this is my personality. You live a life outside of that. You need to, make history in the here and now too, not just in the past. But, find things that you enjoy, stay patient, don't cherry pick, and follow the journey. See who you get to meet, what places it takes you, answers that you never would have expected to have found out. There's a lot of joy to be found in research in good moderation. So.
As you are doing your research and gathering information, what are some of the better ways and best ways that you have found to share that information as well as put it into maybe a repository for people to visit again and again?
Yeah, that's a great question, because in the museum world, that's the crux of it. To me, there's kind of two cornerstones of a museum experience, right? It's the visitor experience, and then it's, well, how do you maintain the collection so that it's healthy for the visitors to experience, right? In Cooperstown, so many different types of collections. There's a physical teaching collection of artifacts. There's the metadata of so many of these virtual projects, right? You saw many of the website exhibitions we put together. But that metadata has to live in online databases, which thankfully we have cloud services. Usually we have, as a university, you have subscription to, different double storage backups as well too, and that's very helpful as well. And of course, there are a lot of museum software out there as well too, things such as Past Perfect that allow people to keep records clean and accessible, even when a person who's been working on a project might move on and a new person has to inherit it. I think on a personal level for research, and this is the teacher in me, always back up everything, right? Don't just keep things on your phone, don't just keep them on your computer, have USB ports, have a full backup, right? Save it on your cloud, save it on your Google Drive, but the more places you keep it, the harder it is to lose it. And that's one of the things that's so precious about, you think of like the genealogy scrapbook, so precious about my grandfather's mother never throwing out his report cards. Those are one-of-one, right? The fact that they still exist is pretty amazing. But then it's the care to make sure you mount that on acid-free paper, right? And you use acid-free glue to stick, or tape to stick it on there. It's about keeping it in a cool, dark place away from light that would damage it, a la how the Declaration of Independence became so faded. And so it's, thoughtful things like that. The more opportunities, the more places it's saved, the better. The more opportunities people have to access it, the better. And then being as thoughtful and patient in laying out anything that's physical, the better. Generally speaking, the less, if it's something physical as well, the less you use it, the longer it's going to last. So, yeah. The danger of this question, for those of you turning around, is this is my former AP Psych student about to ask me one. I haven't gotten a question from him in about 4 years. So.
Hi, I was just curious. You said you were a teacher for a while, and then you got a master's degree. What was part of your decision to leave teaching and pursue something different?
Yeah, the last 2 years of teaching were the COVID years, right? Everything changed. It's one I just mentioned. Everybody lives through history, and sometimes you realize it in the moment just how much history you're living through, and that's one of those things. And sometimes you don't because it's smaller. It's like a transformation that just happens slowly. 2 years of teaching in COVID makes you sit at home a lot by yourself and think, do I want to do this for 30 years? Well, I did. I wasn't having a bad time. I loved teaching. The content, the kids were great, all that, right? But are there other things I want to do while I'm still young and I can do them? And there was definitely a push, because it was a whole lot less fun to be in the classroom during the COVID years. If there's ever an opportunity to try something new, well, this is it. And I think, I'm not uncommon in the historical record going forward about that. There will be so many oral histories of people who changed their careers, moved to different locations, right, because of that era and time. So it's just, opportunity, time, kind of a metanoia, a nice term that I learned from Dr. Langton here, kind of all hit me at once in 2020, 2021, and I was lucky to get into Cooperstown, and it seemed like a great opportunity to live somewhere else and try something where I still feel every day I go to work, even though I work as a development officer, I still feel I'm an educator. Every single day I'm still an educator. I get to talk about history, I get to teach about ways that we can keep this history alive, that we can make it come to life even more. Every day I still feel that I'm teaching. I put together PowerPoints, I put together proposals, and our strategies are like lesson plans. I still feel like a teacher all the time, and I love that, right? I still build relationships with people. But now it's nice, I'm out of the classroom. Sometimes I get more flexibility with the tools in my toolbox to do it, so.
Thank you, John, for mentioning a metanoia.
Yeah.
That made my day. Metanoia, a fundamental change in consciousness brought about by research.
Yep. Yeah. I told you guys, those Westminster lessons will stick with you. So.
All right, we've got time for one more question, I think. If you don't sound, I'm going to start saying. Okay.
Well.
All right, if we have any more, can you join me again and thank you, John?
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you, John, for your wonderful presentation. It's been such a pleasure having John back on campus and hearing about your experiences. I feel like that's exactly what we want to achieve in a liberal arts education. So it's just really, really, truly wonderful. My name is Dr. Callie Wright-Smith. I serve as the co-director of the Center for Teaching and Learning. I'm also the faculty advisor for our student speaker, who was chosen this year from an impressive list of submissions. I'm excited to introduce our student speaker this morning. Amelia Hilsey is a junior from Bourbon, Missouri. A psychology major, an English and Women and Gender Studies minor, Amelia is involved in several areas of campus life. She's a member of the Honors Program, a first-year experience mentor, and a Remley Women and Gender Center intern. Amelia's research began as part of a group project last spring for the Honors Program, and her enthusiasm for the work led her to take the project in new directions over the course of the last 2 semesters. As you will hear in her presentation, the research is rooted in a desire to enhance our sense of community on campus. It encourages us to think creatively, imagine how we can expand our potential, and continue growing as a college. It's been a joy to work on this project with Amelia, because this work has been a truly student-driven endeavor that has the goal of achieving meaningful changes on this campus for so many different groups. We hope her presentation will inspire conversation and a little bit of dreaming about where we can go next. It's my pleasure to introduce our student speaker, Amelia Hilsey, who will present her research titled Reimagining the Westminster Community.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start off by saying thank you so much for being here. Like she said, my name is Amelia, and I'm a junior here. Before I get started, I would like to thank Dr. Callie Wright-Smith for giving me the space to conduct this research and giving me the guidance that I've gotten throughout this entire experience. Today, I will be talking about the formation of community in third spaces and how these topics are viewed and interact on Westminster's campus. I wanted to make a difference on our campus with my research, and in order to do this properly, I created goals to keep in mind throughout the entirety of my process. Through my work with this project, I wanted to evaluate and bring attention to how students, faculty, and staff perceive the sense of community as well as the quality of third spaces on our campus. In doing this, I wanted to highlight the areas that Westminster is excelling in, as well as bring attention to the areas that our community feels there needs attention and improvement. But I couldn't just stop there. Simply identifying these successes and these disparities on our campus is not enough. It is our duty as members of the Westminster community to take action in initiating change on our campus. Initiating this conversation and kickstarting the movement towards improvement on Westminster's campus has always been the end goal of this project. The first step to developing a strong community is to understand how connections are formed. To do this, we need to take a look at what is known as social capital. Social capital is the networks of relationships and the mutual benefits and trust that are associated with them. There are two key ways that social capital can be built: bonding and bridging. In bonding social capital, one strengthens connections within a group, connecting with people with the same backgrounds, interests, or values as you. In bridging, this involves forming relationships across groups, linking with others from diverse perspectives, backgrounds, and different interests. For the success of fostering a strong college community, a healthy balance of both bonding and bridging is necessary. In doing this, it helps students in the formation of identity, in the development of meaningful relationships with others, in the creation of support systems, and it unlocks opportunities that they would not have had otherwise. Social capital is foundational to the creation of a strong sense of community, which directly impacts the success and well-being of college students. When students feel as though they belong to their community, we can see improved mental health outcomes, with both lower depression and lower anxiety levels. Students' motivation and persistence in academics increases with a stronger sense of community, resulting in higher retention rates and increased engagement with campus resources. We must be creative when planning community building initiatives and consider any possible thing that could have an impact on our community. When trying to form stronger communities on college campuses, it is important to take a closer look at the physical spaces that are available on campus. When thinking about what types of physical spaces are beneficial to the formation of community, arguably the most important type of space is what is known as a third space. The term the third space was coined by Ray Oldenburg back in 1989 to describe a communal environment to gather for informal social interactions. These spaces are called third space because they exist outside of the two primary spaces of home, which acts as a first space, and work or school, which acts as a second space. It is crucial to include high-quality third spaces within a community, as they provide an abundance of benefits to the members of said community. These communal spaces offer a relaxed and welcoming environment for everybody, bringing people together in a space where they're equals. This helps to foster a sense of belonging and connection on college campuses. In many third spaces, these areas act as a creative hub, stimulating collaboration and creativity in those who take advantage of them. It is in these communal spaces that students are able to form relationships with their peers, further building their social networks with others on campus and fostering a sense of belonging to their community. This is why it is necessary for college campuses to provide a variety of high-quality third spaces on their campus. After learning about the formation of communities and ways to help build stronger communities through physical spaces, I wanted to evaluate how these topics interacted on Westminster's campus. With my research, I aim to assess the quality of current Westminster third spaces. I did this through receiving feedback from students, faculty, and staff here at Westminster about their perspectives of community and their usage of the spaces provided on our campus. I used this feedback to create recommendations to further build our campus community through improvements to our physical spaces. I gathered data over the span of 3 semesters, including 2 separate samples within my study. The first sample of participants was gathered in the spring semester of 2024 through a virtual survey sent out to students. The data from this sample was gathered as a part of a group project conducted by the Spring Honors Program seminar class. The second sample of participants was gathered over the span of 2 semesters, the fall of 2024 and the spring of 2025. For this sample, I conducted in-person interviews with Westminster students, faculty, and staff. The first sample collected included 63 participants, all of which were Westminster students. Within this sample, the majority of students identified as female. Approximately 2/3 of participants were members of Greek life. About 1/3 of participants indicated that they were first-generation students. There was a fairly even split between student athletes and non-athlete students, with slightly more students being involved in athletics. And there was a solid representation of each class within this sample. For the second sample of this study, I conducted interviews with 25 participants. 60% of this sample was made up of students, while 40% was made up of faculty and staff. Again, the majority of participants in this sample identified as female, though we did get a small representation of the LGBTQ+ community, with 4% identifying as non-binary. The vast majority of participants identified with white, with only 8% of the participants being African American and 4% identifying with 2 or more races or ethnicities. In terms of the student sector of this sample, there was an underrepresentation of freshmen, but there was a solid representation of the rest of the classes. Similar to the first sample, 1/3 of students interviewed indicated that they were first-generation students. 1/3 of the students indicated that they were student athletes. 60% of students were Greek life members. And additionally, in this sample, I was able to get feedback from a wide variety of academic departments, reaching 12 different departments on campus. Through the first sample collected, I was able to collect quantitative data regarding campus beliefs about community and space on Westminster's campus. When students were asked how important it is to them to have a sense of community here at Westminster, 97% of students indicated that it is somewhat to extremely important to them. And though a majority of students feel as though they do have a sense of community here on Westminster's campus, there's still a meaningful amount that do not, with 18% of students indicating that they feel as though they have somewhat to no community here at Westminster. In terms of third spaces on our campus, many students showed some discontent with the spaces provided. Nearly half of the participants believe that the availability of spaces is fair to poor, with only 6% rating availability as excellent. Lastly, participants were asked to provide suggestions to improve campus spaces to create a more welcoming environment. Over a quarter of respondents indicated a need for more authentic third spaces on our campus. 17% indicated a need for regular maintenance and upgraded equipment within these spaces, and 11% indicated that they would like to see more outdoor spaces for students to utilize. After seeing these results last spring, I wanted to have face-to-face interaction with not just the students, but the faculty and staff here at Westminster, with the goal of using this feedback and suggestions provided to give a voice to our community. Nearly all of the participants responded saying that having a sense of community here at Westminster is extremely important to them. And while most participants agreed that there are meaningful ways that Westminster has put in effort to promote a sense of belonging and a sense of community on our campus, many also indicated that there are some challenges that have been faced to fostering this sense of belonging. Some of these challenges include a lack of communication about events, spaces, and resources, a lack of interest in these events and campus resources from the community members themselves, and a lack of communal spaces to hang out in. Participants indicated a strong need for more authentic third spaces on our campus. Many students do not use the third spaces that are provided on our campus as such, with the purpose of these spaces being blended into academic life, simply being viewed as places outside of their room to do homework or meet with groups to do projects. While participants believe that the spaces we do have can provide opportunities for people to gather for a variety of reasons and can promote organic and casual interactions, there are also a few things that were identified to have negative impacts. Responses indicated that the third spaces on campus are not entirely functional to the students' wants or needs, and they do not provide an environment promoting prolonged usage. Using these responses, I began to create proposals for campus improvements with the goal of strengthening community here at Westminster. The proposals that were developed from my research were designed in a way that would align with the pillars and goals laid out in Westminster College's strategic plan. Each proposal is categorized in two ways. They will fall into a low, medium, or high budget category. And along with budget, the proposals for space improvements and community initiative needed to be developed very mindfully to understand exactly how they are going to impact our community. Using previous literature, I identified key elements that needed to be considered in the creation and redesign of third spaces in order to have a positive impact on our community. Spaces must be accessible to everybody. Not only should they be easy to find and enter, but they should be welcoming to all. Students should be able to manipulate the spaces to shape their own experiences within them. Students should be able to take ownership over the spaces on their campus. Spaces should promote interaction between individuals using the space, giving an inclusive area for socialization amongst peers. Spaces should be comfortable and inviting. They should be environments that are aesthetically and functionally appealing to the members of communities. Our spaces should be designed in a way that is easy to navigate and encourages prolonged usage, giving reasons to stay within the space. Any space or initiative should be created in a way that promotes forming connections with others, promoting community building on our campus. The first set of proposals falls into the low budget category, costing very little to nothing to integrate onto our campus. The first and easily the easiest to integrate is highlighting student work that is already being done. There are so many ways that this can be done, from events showing recognition, such as what is happening here today, to more permanent displays of student work. Another low-cost and easy-to-integrate proposal is increasing collaboration between student groups on campus, such as organizing events hosted by two differing groups. For Westminster to have a well-functioning community, there needs to be strong communication across all groups on campus. Before changes are made to the spaces on campus, the institution or groups aiming to implement these changes need to have meaningful conversations with the community that is actively using them. In doing this, they can get an understanding of what our community genuinely wants and needs for our campus. The final low-cost proposal includes incorporating collaborative artistic projects on our campus. There are already so many student artists on our campus, and giving them the space to create pieces of art together to display on campus is something that would greatly benefit us. The second section of proposals falls under the medium budget category. These suggestions are ones that would involve a little bit more of an investment into our spaces. One of the most common themes in my research results was the desire for spaces to prioritize comfort and aesthetic appeal. This includes upgrading to more functional, comfortable, and modular seating in our spaces, more routine maintenance and cleanliness of the spaces, and inclusion of decorations that promote a welcoming and relaxing environment. Providing options for activities within these spaces on campus can increase utilization of these spaces. The inclusion of activities such as board games, tetherball, or racquetball would help to increase the desire to use the third spaces that we already have and interact with others. One way to bring attention to the spaces that we already have is to simply host more casual events within them. By hosting events with different organizations in our third spaces, more awareness will be brought to the fact that these spaces are available and welcome to everybody. The final category of proposals is the high budget suggestions. These will take a significant amount of time and monetary investment to incorporate onto campus, but ultimately will have an abundance of benefits to the Westminster community. Something that was highlighted in my research was the lack of third spaces on Westminster's campus. There's an agreement that there is a need for not just more spaces, but for authentic third spaces designed solely for the purpose of hanging out casually with your peers. The repurposing of spaces that are no longer used, or construction of new spaces, there are many ways to include new spaces for communal gathering on our campus. The design of these spaces needs to be mindful, including aspects from the previous two sections, such as communication of wants and needs, and allowing students to take creative ownership in the creation of such spaces. The final proposal includes investing into our fine arts program. And literature has shown that there are so many benefits that investing in fine arts can bring, and it helps to bring communities together. In doing this, the student artists that we have on campus will have more opportunities to collaborate with each other in a space when they would not usually get the chance to. This is not something that we'll be starting from scratch some. There are already so many amazing examples on our campus. As you can see on the left, on the right, the Museum Studies program has provided so many examples on how to do this properly and meaningfully on our campus. Their classroom, though it is not a third space, is a perfect example of how to use student work and meaningful decorations to create a stimulating environment. In the middle, you can see two spaces on campus that have taken initiative in creating a welcoming space for our students. On the top, you can see the Remley Women and Gender Space, somewhere that a student intern took initiative to create a space that is welcoming to all. And on the bottom, you can see our JCI space, which has provided many activities for our students, such as game tables and comfortable seating to promote usage and interaction within that space. And finally, on the right side of the screen, you can see collaborative creativity projects that are currently on our campus. On the top, you can see one that is actively being done. This is a space where students can contribute to their space that they use weekly. And on the bottom, you can see the result of one of these projects, one that has not only given students a space to take ownership, but that has extremely improved the environment of a space. There are ample opportunities for this to be done in so many other spaces. For example, such as improved seating in the CSC third spaces, highlighting student work and using that to decorate the walls, or including comfortable seating such as hammocks or benches in the outdoor spaces that we already have. There are so many ways that our spaces could easily be improved. Investing in our spaces is not something that will only benefit the institution or will only benefit the students that are attending, but was something that will help bring both of us together and move towards progress. It will help make progress towards the institutional goals that have been laid out in our strategic plan. And so with that, I ask you this: how can we reimagine the spaces on our campus to further build our community? What can you do to help the maintenance and improvement of the spaces on our campus? Thank you.
of minutes if anyone has any questions for Natalie.
If you were given the ability to do one project with limitless budget, what would you do on our campus?
I think that investment into the outdoor spaces is something that is extremely important. We have so much green space, and there's so much opportunity to take advantage of that space in meaningful ways.
What was something unexpected that you came across in your research?
We did have quite a few people that seemed to be content with the spaces and didn't really see a problem with them, but this was also communities on campus, such as student athletes or Greek members, that had communities already.
What's your first step in implementing these plans? Like, who would you go to, just so people know on campus, like, who they can go to implement things like this?
I am currently writing up a physical, paper copy of these proposals to take to higher administration, and I am so open to more suggestions, and me and Dr. Wright-Smith would love to talk to people about these before I submit them.
I'm asking a question. They famously say, and this is very true, that a good education can change your life.
Yes.
I wonder how you evaluate belongingness in that as well, too, thinking about your project and the idea of third spaces.
So I'm a student who has experienced not having a sense of belonging on our campus, and I know how that can impact your effort into college classes, and I feel like when I was experiencing that, I genuinely I did care, but I didn't feel as though I should care as much as I did. But I also have had the benefit of experiencing the community and all of the benefits that has brought me, and I think that has helped push me towards success, and I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for my community, so.
So I have a question. The director of our library services, Victoria Knight, she conducted some student surveys regarding the ways in which we can improve the spaces at the library. Have you ever talked with her or collaborated with our library services?
Yes, I actually have talked with Victoria Knight, and we had a very meaningful conversation, and I do intend to talk with her more about it. I did participate in that survey, so I think it would be interesting to see what students want for that space as well.
Thank you very much. At the risk of putting you on the spot, would you be willing to come to our cabinet meeting and speak about this topic more?
Of course.
More terms? And I know between now and the next 3 weeks is a lot, but
Yeah.
maybe later in the fall. And I'm very serious about that. That was very, very interesting.
Thank you. I would love to talk with you about this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amelia, for that very relevant presentation that all of us can think about and talk about. At this time, we are going to present several of our academic awards. Thanks to all of our faculty and staff who made this portion of the Scholars Forum possible. Each individual faculty member who's presenting an award will come forward. When your name is announced for the winners, please come up and you'll might get your picture taken and shake the president's hand, which is fabulous. Also, all of our award winners, please stay after for additional group photo opportunities. We would appreciate that.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Alicia Martin and I'm the director of the Honors Program. And what a beautiful coincidence that we have John York with us here today. He was part of the first class graduating with Dr. Levine's under her tenure as the Honors Program Director. And in this theme of journeys, I get to present the people beginning their journey in the Honors Program, while also throughout the day we get to experience and recognize the students who are ending their journey. You can note that those are the students that have the little asterisks by their name in the program that are completing their final parts for their requirements for the Honors Program. But today, please recognize with me our first-year students who have completed the requirements of the program: Annabelle Bryant, Taylor Helchowski, Brianna Huber, Matt Martucci, and Justice Vargas. So if they would all come down and please, let's give them your applause.
All right, good morning, everybody. It is my pleasure to present the Dr. Cameron and Jessie Day Prize. This award goes to a graduating senior with high academic achievement who is majoring in either biology or biochemistry. They have a long list of things they needed to accomplish to get this award, and I am so pleased that this award this year is going to an individual who has spent way too much time in a non-third space of the gross anatomy lab. I thoroughly appreciate all the effort that they have put into their academic success, and I would like to recognize Toby Hughes as a recipient of the award.
It's my pleasure to announce this year's winner for the Harmon L. Rummel Prize for Outstanding Thesis in History. It's named after Harmon L. Rummel III, who graduated from Westminster College with a degree in history in 1965. Sadly, Rummel was among the 7 Westminster students who gave their lives in Vietnam, and the family established this award in his honor. This year, the department is proud to award the Rummel Prize to Faith Beckman for her thesis entitled Lost Voices, Reclaiming Prostitutes of the American West from Historical and Popular Misconceptions.
Good morning. I'm Dr. James McCrae. I am the chair of the Department of Classics, Philosophy, and Religious Studies. The Robert G. and Ruth H. Herber Scholarship is given each year to a senior who has demonstrated excellence in the field of classics, philosophy, or religious studies. This year's recipient is Anna Cox.
In general, the study abroad scholarships are usually presented by the Coordinator of Global Educational Services. We are going to have a new coordinator soon. Until then, it is my pleasure to introduce the recipients of Vernon and Marion Piper Scholarship and Crenshaw Family Scholarship. So it is my pleasure to call on John Luke McGee as a recipient of Crenshaw Scholarship. The recipient of Marion and Vernon Scholarship is Paul Campoverde. And both Paul and Jean-Luc are going to go to study in England at Winchester and East Anglia Universities.
Okay, it is my honor to present the Dr. Therese Miller and Lawrence Miller Endowed Health and Exercise Science Award. Dr. Miller was the founder of the Health and Exercise Science Department, now is Professor Emeritus, and you can find her teaching yoga on our class, for our classes still today. This award supports the work of students who are similarly dedicated to improving community health, and their work has overarching significance to the whole of society. This year's recipients are Carolyn Bentley and Caleb Hinkle-Pruitt.
So I'm pleased to honor and award all three of my writing consultants in the Writing Center this academic year. Will Marley Velasquez, Nada Ulis, and Sophie Hudspeth please come forward? So Sophie is an emerging writing consultant. She has joined us this semester and will be back next fall to continue helping in the Writing Center. And Nada has been with the Writing Center since it's come back in its physical location since COVID. I'm very grateful to both of my writing consultants who are here. Marley isn't here at the moment, but she's been serving as an outstanding writing consultant this last academic year, and she's also returning in the fall, so please join me in congratulating her. I'm also honored to announce the winners of the first year writing awards. Our first award is for Outstanding Academic Writing 1 essay, which is awarded to Sam Miller. Outstanding Essay in Academic Writing 2 is awarded to Carly Rager. And last but not least is our Outstanding Essay in Westminster Seminar, which is awarded to Lindriel Burden.
So I am pleased to present the Margaret McDonald Yeager Psychology Awards. These awards are given to junior and senior psychology majors each year who have outstanding academic achievement and have completed excellent, outstanding other work too, like thesis, internships, study abroad, and things like that. It's an endowed award made possible due to the generosity of the Yeager family. Dr. Ted Yeager was a Westminster psychology professor for many years. The senior award helps pay for graduate school expenses. Our senior winner was a December graduate, Michael Giles, so he's not here today because he's working with clients. He's getting his master's degree to become an applied behavior analyst and is working as a registered behavior technician at Spring Health, working with individuals with autism. So we're very excited for him all the same, though, so congratulations to Michael. Okay, we have 2 junior winners. One of them is Caitlin Halamichek. Caitlin wants to become a researcher. She's a double major in mathematical and data science and psychology and pursuing a certificate in human development and family studies. She's just submitted her research to a national conference, so she hopes to get good news soon. So congratulations, Caitlin. The other junior winner is Amelia Hilsey. As you've already heard, she's a psychology major, women and gender studies, and English minor. She's in the honors program. She wants to become a counselor, and she's been selected to serve as an intern at the Fulton Community Supervision Center. So she's been working with women all semester there. So congratulations. In my other role as co-director of teaching and learning, I'm also here to announce the winners of the Undergraduate Scholars Forum Best Paper and Best Posters. So we're all in for a treat today with all kinds of great research being presented, but some of the students submitted papers or narrated posters for our awards competition. We're so grateful to the Stubbs family for their generous donations so that these people can get nice awards. Nice money for themselves. So thank you. All right, so before I announce the winners, I did just want to mention that the judges spent a significant amount of time reading all the posters and papers, and we had amazing student work. It was very hard to decide. But in the Division of Social Sciences, the best paper was Why the International Criminal Court Matters by Jake Trout. In the Humanities Division, the best paper was Just War Theory and Russia by Victor Guevara. All right. And then the best overall paper this year was from the Natural and Mathematical Science Division. The paper is Comparing Reef and Sand Flat Marine Environments Using Baited Remove Underwater Video by Kirsten Stevens. We also looked at the posters, and the winner in the Social Science Division was Examining Relational Aggression in College Students by the team of Skylar English, Peyton Heavner, and Caitlin Halamichek. And finally, the overall winner for Best Poster was the Creatinine Charge, a case control report on the effects of creatinine monohydrate supplementation on creatine kinase levels in a college-aged male with cystic fibrosis by Caleb Hinkle-Pruitt. So the Committee for Teaching and Learning would like to thank, congratulations to our winners. So the Committee for Teaching and Learning would like to thank all of the students and faculty for everything they've done to contribute to this exceptional event. We especially would like to thank our faculty sponsors of the research projects today. Please stand so that we can thank you. So faculty, stand up if you supported a student project. Thank you also to the I-Team, Marketing and Communications teams, the Teaching and Learning Committee, and student ambassadors. This day would be impossible without all of your help. Deepest gratitude to the Stubbs family for their generous support. And finally, a reminder to all the students, have fun today. Please enjoy visiting the different sessions. We have more donuts out there, I believe, so if you'd like to grab some before you head to your 10:45 session. Thank you and enjoy this wonderful day of learning with your peers.